Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3rd, 2013, the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Johnson, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's good to be in the People's House this afternoon to talk about a topic that is of utmost concern to the American people: energy. Before I start that conversation, though, I ask Mr. Speaker for unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the subject of my special order.
Without objection, so ordered.
Energy. What does it mean for America? We all put gas in our cars. We all heat and cool our homes. Businesses across this country power their manufacturing processes. So what does energy mean for today and for the future of our country? I'm proud to be a member of the House Energy Action Team because we understand the critical role that domestic energy production plays not only today, but in the future of our country. And let me give an example about why this is so important. I remember one of the very first memorable events that occurred in March of 2011 in my first term. We were addressed here in this chamber by the Prime Minister of Australia. And in her remarks, she commented. She said, "I remember being a young girl sitting on the floor of my living room watching Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin land on the moon." She went on to talk about how America and Australia had stood side by side, how America had actually stood in front of and protected Australia during some of the darkest days of World War II in the Pacific. At the end of her speech, she said, "You know, back when I was a little girl and I saw that moon landing, I thought to myself, wow, those Americans can do anything." And she wrapped up her comments by saying, "Today, as Prime Minister of Australia, with a lot of experience under my belt, today I still believe that Americans can do anything." And when you stop and think about the moon landing, and I know you're going to say, well, what does that have to do with energy? I'm getting to that. President Kennedy gave us a vision of putting a man on the moon in 10 years. We didn't make it in 10 years. We made it in less than 10 years. And the reason that we did was because every fabric of our society bought into the idea. Academic institutions, the scientific community, industries cropped up overnight. Millions of jobs were created. Young people lined up to get into academic programs where they could major in degrees that would prepare them for careers in space exploration. And at the end of the day, actually, we're not at the end of the day. We're still benefiting from the innovation and the technological advance that came out of that era. It was a time when America's imagination was captivated by what many thought was impossible and what the rest of the world didn't really think we could do. But you look at what has happened since we started that journey. All of the technological innovations that have occurred: cell phones, flat screen TVs, GPS, even arthroscopic surgery. You know, we had to learn to perform medical procedures on space travelers in a way that was non-invasive, and medical experts began to think about how do we do that in outer space. So we learned how to dream. And that goal to put a man on the moon captivated America's imagination. I want you to think about for a second, what would happen if America once again embarked on a journey of that magnitude? And I believe a journey to become energy independent and secure in America is just such a journey that we could embark on. A vision of energy independence and security would not only captivate the imagination of the American people, but it would put America back to work at a time when our economy is in such desperate need of private sector economic growth. Imagine what would happen if we had a national energy vision that sounded something like this. We're going to go after the vast volumes of oil and natural gas that we have. We've got more of it than anyone else in the world does, by many experts' opinion. We're going to expand our nuclear footprint because nuclear energy is one of the safest, most reliable forms of energy on the planet, and we brought that to the world. We know how to do it. We're going to continue to mine coal, and we're going to learn how to use it environmentally soundly because we've got enough coal to fuel our energy needs for generations yet to come. And we're even going to embrace alternative forms of energy, biofuels, wind and solar. Now, they're not going to meet our heavy lifting energy needs for the foreseeable future, but there's a role that they play in our overall energy profile. And we're going to back that up with action with the regulatory community. Tell the regulators at the EPA and the Department of the Interior and the Army Corps of Engineers, effective today, you start being partners in progress with America's energy industries. Rather than being the Department of No, learn how to find a way forward. If a particular project or a particular technology presents concerns, then let's address those concerns. But no should not be the final answer. We've learned through the lessons of putting a man on the moon that when Americans are allowed to dream, when they're allowed to innovate, when they're allowed to compete, there's nothing that we can't solve. Why is energy independence and security so important? Well, first of all, it's important because of national security. Right now, today, we are beholden to some countries that don't like us very much for our energy resources. Why do we want to continue to do that when we have the resources right here at home to be able to solve that problem? But in order to captivate the imagination of the American people, we've got to help the American people understand why this is so important to them. We talk about energy in terms of very important projects like the Keystone XL pipeline, who the president himself said that the environmental concerns were over-exaggerated. So let's get the project approved. But we talk about it in technical terms: pipelines, hydraulic fracturing, oil rigs, nuclear reactors, uranium enrichment. What does all that mean to American taxpayers, working Americans that are just struggling day in and day out to make ends meet? Here's what it means. Take a manufacturing process. The manufacturing of cereal, Pop-Tarts, you name it, whatever our children consume today. when domestic energy costs are reduced, those manufacturing costs to produce those goods are also reduced. When the price of diesel fuel goes down, the transportation to transport those goods from the manufacturers to the grocery stores, when those costs go down, those savings are passed on in the cost of the product to the consumers. When working mothers and single moms and single dads trying to make ends meet, trying to figure out how they're going to put kids through college, how they're going to buy the next pair of tennis shoes, when they're balancing the checkbook and they see that their energy costs to heat and to cool their homes are going down, and that they're paying less to fill up their car to go back and forth to work, that translates into economic confidence to do the kinds of things that we were able to do during that remarkable period of putting a man on the moon. Today we got a lot of naysayers out there that just simply don't understand how important this is, this idea of energy independence and security to the American people, and they're trying to frighten the American people. Hydraulic fracturing. My goodness. We've been doing hydraulic fracturing in America for over 60 years. 60 years. Over 1 million such operations. The former EPA administrator herself acknowledged has not been a single incident where hydraulic fracturing has contaminated the water table. Yet the EPA is working hard to try and insert itself into a process that many, many states are already doing and already doing very well. Take, for example, the state of Ohio, where I come from. I sit, literally, my district sits on top of the Marcellus and the Utica Shale, one of the world's largest reservoirs of oil and natural gas. The state of Ohio has been regulating the oil and gas industry since 1965. We're among one of those states that has done a lot of hydraulic fracturing. And yet again, not one proven instance where that process has contaminated drinking water. And yet you've got those that sit on the sidelines and try to frighten homeowners, try to frighten those people that live in Appalachia, Ohio, that their water is going to be contaminated. It's not. It's a proven process. And just over the last 5 years, we've developed technology called horizontal hydraulic fracturing, where we can go down a mile and then go out horizontally another mile, sometimes more, and have much more of that vital resource of oil and natural gas flowing to the surface. Resources that are going to move America one step closer to energy independence and security. Mr. Speaker, we've got an opportunity to put America back in charge of our economic destiny. And an energy vision that says a real all-of-the-above energy vision for this country is what America needs.